Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. I understand we already have 4 people that are already on, so thank you for joining me. Be sure to give me a shout. Let me know who's watching so I can, recognize you. And I want to thank you for joining me on our first live stream here in the studio. And today we're going to be painting 2 little fox pups. And I want to talk a little bit about my process. We're going to paint for about 2 hours, and I'm not really certain how far we'll get through this, but I think you'll get a really good idea of how I go about doing a painting. And the process, regardless of what the subject is basically the same. Something inspires me. And whatever inspires me, well, that's the spark. That's how things get started. And then I start looking for references. And when I start to get the references, and whether I already have the references or I have to go take reference photos or get references, that's the next step. And then there's the composition and figuring out compositional elements that need to apply. So if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it a million times. Photos are simply references. They are not they generally don't have your complete composition worked out. So I can't say it enough. References are merely that, references. The art part, if you will, comes from here and here. So that's where the fun part actually is. So we're going to go ahead and start this piece. Now I did a very loose sketch of how I want the little foxes to go. And if you've watched my videos, you know that my paintings usually morph, meaning, oh, I got the back a little too short, so let's lengthen it out on this side. Oh, we got to fix the ears. That all is going to happen here too, I'm sure. The color palette that I want to talk about, and I don't know, I've got the 2 cameras here. One's a little less optimum than it should be, so I'm going to show you on my camera here what my palette is, and I'm going to talk about the colors. And if you can see, the colors that I've laid out I have King's Blue, Titanium White, this is Pale Violet, this is Lemon Yellow, this is Yellow Lake, then this is Yellow Lake Deep, and this is Indian Yellow. I have Yellow Ochre, Cadmium Red, Italian Brown Umber, this is Titanium Buff, this is Burnt Sienna. Then I have Burnt Umber, Raw Umber, Ivory Black. This is Chromite, Cobalt Chromite Green. This is Phthalo Green Emerald. And this is Titanium White. Now, I will probably have to add more color as I go. And of course, a lot of the colors can be mixed. I can mix them. Interesting enough, I don't even have my ultramarine blue. And I do need to put some ultramarine blue down, but I'll get that here in a little bit. So anytime I'm working with oranges and yellows, I almost always will have a blue and a purple down, because working with complements, it's the best way for me to sort of temper some of my hot colors is with its complement. So if I've got a bright yellow, I'm going to add a little bit of purple to it. Some kind of violet is going in there. And if it's too orange, I can always add a little bit of blue to bring it down. So I've got to have some ultramarine blue as well. But my basic, and it's hard to see, but I've got my iPad here. I've got my actual sketched on foxes, and then I have my paint. Now, I have an assortment of brushes, of course, and I'll try to call out the brushes I'm using as I'm doing this. And yeah, here we go. Let's go ahead and jump in. But before I do want to go ahead and get some ultramarine blue. So let me grab some blue real quick. And I have my little travel case over here. It's pretty handy. And I'm going to put some ultramarine blue down because I am dealing with a lot of oranges. And I already have my my violet down, so I should be okay. And I've got my handy dandy drink here so I can keep my whistle wet, so when I'm talking to you I don't dry out. Okay, so I'm going to go in ultimately first, let's see here, let me get my reference up here. Okay, I am going to do a very, 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 I'm going to play with the pups at first. And so I'm just going to take, let's see if this one will do it for me. I'm going to go in with a number 4 Shiraz pointed round. And I am just going to look at my little pups and sort of establish where the dark and light values are and kind of mix some of my colors. And I'm going to start with yellow ochre, and I'm taking the Italian brown umber and yellow ochre, and off to the side I'm mixing a little raw umber. And you know, and this is actually a graphite sketch. You guys know that I almost always use I'm really big into vine charcoal, but in this case I really didn't want to use vine because I didn't want it to dirty up my paint. So I'm just kind of suggesting where some of the dark values is, and in the beginning of a lot of my pieces you'll see that I squint a lot. I'm quite a little squinter.
Jerry says hi.
Hey Jerry! I'm glad you're here. I'm glad.
Wolf says hi, Sue.
Who does?
CJ Calvert Art.
Okay, hi CJ.
Reeves is on here.
Hey Reeves.
Me, myself, and me too.
Not.
Joylyn is also on here.
Hi Joylyn. We're missing you. Missing you. I hope you're able to return very soon. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start putting in some of this. And what I want you folks to get excited about, right now I'm making this available to everybody on YouTube, but eventually, once we build up our membership on YouTube, and this is also for my Patreon folks, I'm going to start to make a lot of the live streams are going to become a little bit more private for my YouTube members and for my Patreon folks. But right now, I wanted everybody who could come on. So I'm mixing a little ivory black, and it seems like, you know what, a color that I probably should add is Purple Lake to this mix. I have a feeling I would really miss that Purple Lake if it's not here, and I'm going to grab it because that's what I do. I will go on the fly and find the color I'm searching for. Now, there we go, Purple Lake, right on top. Aha! Pays to be somewhat organized. And anybody who knows me knows I'm really not that organized. We're gonna put that right there, a little Purple Lake. And Purple Lake is a really fun color. I do like it, and I do use it a lot. It's a very deep, rich, purpley brown, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful color. It just kind of livens up really dark colors. And I want these little fox pups to be lively. I'm going to take a little bit of the pale violet. I'm going to mix a little titanium white with that. A little shot of ivory black. And organizing your palette really is kind of crucial. I think it really does help with the expediting the painting process just a little bit. I find that it's very important to do. Okay. Now, the little abdomen on this little guy. Interesting colors. I'm going to take a little bit of the...
Susan is here.
Hi, Susan. Didn't I just see you? Didn't I just see you? Just like a few minutes ago. Susan is one of my group students on Saturday, so she's already been by, and I appreciate you tuning in. All right, so I'm going to go in here, and this might need a little bit more yellow. So I will adjust. Now, understanding the opacity of your paint is really important. And I am really failing on this one color I'm trying to achieve. All right, folks, we're probably getting ready to have a nice storm here. Okay, let's see if this will do. Yeah. And I'm mixing. I'm trying to get this color here. Yeah, it's a little bit better. I do want it to have a little bit more orange. So I'm going to take a little of the cad red. There we go. A little cad red. And a little bit of the, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Now I could do a couple different values of that. That's it. That's what I needed. So the cad red and the yellow lake is what I wanted this to be a very pale orange. Now, one of the things I meant to do, but I didn't, but it's okay. I want these guys, they're going to be very backlit. So I'm trying to get a little bit richer color in some of these. Now, like I said, I think I touched on this just a second, for just a tiny second. Understanding the opacity of the paint you're working with is kind of important. And when I say the opacity, you know, is it opaque, semi-transparent, or transparent? And understanding that idea will serve you well. And that's because knowing how to layer your paint, knowing what's going to, you know, for tinting properties, what is going to work for you is kind of crucial. You really do need to understand that. So kind of look into it. That might be a really good YouTube video. If you think you would benefit from that, let me know. Tell me what you're thinking. Because I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Okay, so I'm working with this orange, and you know, these pups are going to be somewhat cool simply because the light is really coming from behind them. And that's why I was going to want to have them backlit. And wow, there sounds like a dog fight. Can y'all hear that? I'm easily distracted. Oh, dog fight. Okay, so, but let me know if you think, you know, you would like to see either a YouTube video or a Patreon video based on just the opacity of paint. Love to hear what you have to say. Okay. And you can see I'm just looking at large shapes at this point. Now, when something is cool, I gotta add a color to it. So I'm going in with the violet, the pale violet, and taking this color down. You can see that becomes a lot flatter. And because it is in the shadow here, it's not going to be the bright orange that you come to expect when you're looking at a fox. So I'm just going to get a lot of these shapes in. And same with the grays. White is almost never white. So I'm taking a little bit. One of my favorite grays to make is taking burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. Makes a beautiful gray. And you can either warm it up or cool it down depending on the amount of blue or the burnt sienna that you add. So I'm making a burnt sienna type of gray right now. I did just grab a little King's Blue for the heck of it, because, you know, I like King's Blue. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this down, and even though it'll look very, very dark at first, that's okay, because I want that to be my base white. This is where my fox will, as I add other color on top. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to backlight these little guys. And so I might want to warm up my light just a little bit. So I'm taking titanium white and a little bit of lemon yellow. And so in the areas of the body of this animal, I am putting in these light values. This part of the bottom of this little listen to me, this little fox. And it'll all make sense when I start putting the background in. I just wanted to get this part in a little bit first. I'm probably using too big a brush for this, but Now, I do want to remind everybody, I already know that some of the folks I've talked that are already chiming in today know about my workshop that is coming up on October 7th, 8th, and 9th, and it's painting birds and botanicals. So if you are ever considering coming and jumping onto a workshop, this is going to be a fun one. So please join me.
Jerry says, I find using transparent paints hard. I would like to see a video on how to use them different opacities of paint.
Okay, all right, Jerry, I hear you. You would definitely benefit from seeing a video on the opacity of paint. So we will be considering that. I'll be working on that in my mind, and it may become one for my members. And I know you just became one of my YouTube members, so thank you for that, Jerry. This will be probably a members thing, because it wouldn't be that long a YouTube video, or I guess it could be. Depends on how much. All right, I'm looking at my little cubs here, and I'm just kind of looking at the spaces here. I'm going to go in and make a. What is that color?
Arden Wolf says, I would love a Patreon video on color value, fully warm colors, when to use what in glazing.
Okay, Marty, I hear you. And Marty, I'm glad you got to see the fabric, the folds of fabric video. and so that might be a really good. I hear what you're saying. So we'll jump on doing something like that soon. Because I know that I'm always saying, cool and warm colors. I will tell people the best way to kind of remember it is think of, when you're thinking of cool colors, think of snow and ice. And so you think of purples and blues and, interesting cool greens. Because in my opinion, greens can be warm too. So, but it generally is considered a cool color. And when you're thinking of hot colors, think of fire, think of red and yellow and orange. All right, so I'm just kind of looking around my piece here. And I feel like I'm gonna sneeze, so excuse me ahead of time.
CJ Calvert Art says, I do a lot of glazing, so I love transparent colors.
Okay, I hear you, because and it's interesting when you talk about transparent colors and what, it's funny, right? Because just today, Susan, weren't we talking about, Susan is working on a beautiful painting of her dad. And when I explained that why I don't use a lot of titanium white in tinting for portrait work is because the titanium white is opaque and it just kills a color. You can't do glazing. There is no glazing if you're using titanium white to do your tinting. So you use something like cremets or, a lead white. Or a transparent white. So it's kind of a weird concept if you're only used to using titanium white. So yeah. All right, I'm putting some more grays in this area of the fox's little leg here. Okay. So again, when I first do a piece, I'm starting a piece, I am almost always squinting. I'm going to sort of block in the other cub too. And he's just been sitting here waiting for something to happen. Now I'm going to start, since I'm working from left to right, I'm going to go ahead and do his highlights first, because that's what I'm seeing right away. This little place here. And I am using lemon yellow. Now the substrate that I'm working on today is a 9x12, it's a double-sided panel. So it's got a very, very smooth side and one with just a tiny bit of tooth to it. I'm using the little bit of the toothier side today. And if you know me, you know that I often will use a super, super smooth, but this one is not. Okay, so I'm going along the highlighted areas of this little fox where I know the sun is hitting and wanting it to be light. So it may just seem kind of weird at first. And and just kind of hit it. So it's probably hard to see it because it's not a lot of contrast based on the white background. But when we start adding all the other stuff in, it will make sense. I always say that, right? Just to confuse you. But hopefully you're able to see. Yeah, I think that would be a really good video, Marty, is understanding just the temperature of color and value. And somebody else was telling me recently that they would really like a value piece. So it's interesting. I'm hearing that a lot lately. All right, so I'm going back in on the inside portion of this little fox cub. And remember, he is cool because all the light's hitting from behind. So the warm light is going to hit in certain parts of their, so the front of them will seem rather cool. So I'm mixing a lot of my pale violet into this color because it'll seem very chalky. This is just a very putty-like color. Remember, I'm using burnt sienna. I'm going to put a little bit of, because burnt sienna, let's face it, is basically a really deep dark orange. So that's why using the King's Blue, the ultramarine blue is a wonderful way to get all that in there. Here we go. And let's make some more orange. Taking Cad Red and using Yellow Lake Deep. Adding a little titanium white. Now, you can see if you're watching, if you can see it from the side, I do use my brush a lot to mix my colors. I don't recommend that, but I am doing that because I don't feel like using a knife today. So there you go. But if you want to save your brushes and keep your paint clean, you will not use your knife. You will use your knife and not your brush. Okay, so if I got that color going in there with a little bit more of that. So I'm pulling the a little bit of that violet, and it's not coming out violet. It's looking more green. Interesting. Let's just put some more of this color in here. And there's a lot of grays in this little guy's face. Now, if my niece Jillian is watching, she's doing a really nice little painting of a cat that she's working on. And I'm going to go and do exactly what I told her to do with her piece on this little fox pup. I'm gonna keep it kind of dark. So I'm taking a little bit of umber and black, and I'm just going to kind of delineate the sides of it. Okay, all right. 12 watching. I'm feeling really no pressure. Gotta do a good job. Okay, we're going to take a little. Give me a shout out. There's 12 people out there. Who's watching? I need to know because I'm nosy like that. Okay, starting to see a little cub face, and there's a color that's not in here. Oh, we'll just go in. Since the light is coming from behind these cubs, the light is actually shining through the ears. Okay, from the back side. So there's going to be a little bit of Cad Red right in here, coming from the other side. This one doesn't really have it too much, but this one right here, this cub has it. Remember, the skin on the ears is actually not that thick. Hi, Tony. How are ya? Thanks for tuning in. Okay. And we're mixing a color. Then I want to go ahead and do the inside of the ears. I'm making this gray. And I'm going up to that color, but not through it. One of the biggest offenses, I guess, if you will, with new artists is the need or to overblend. Most of my students that I work with, I think they just think that's what you need to do, and really, no, don't do that. Don't overblend. Overblending is probably the most common thing that I'm usually trying to correct people from doing. Yeah, sometimes if I'm using, now if you're layering paint, I get it, but understand what you're doing. And often in my classes, I'll ask my students, if you can defend the reason you're doing that, are you overblending because why? They may say, oh, because I intend to go ahead and do this, whatever. If they have a valid reason for overblending, I'll let them do it. All right, fine, do it.
CJ Calvert Art says guilty.
You see, right, CJ? It's just something that a lot of us tend to do, and that's the one thing if I could break everybody's, I would rather my students just do a more direct method of painting, and learn to maybe just blend the edges. Just blend up to it. Now, I get, CJ, you had mentioned earlier that you do a lot of glazing. Therefore, with a lot of glazing, you can do color correction, right? You can actually fix some problems if you tended to perhaps maybe use the wrong color the first time, or, what have you. You can justify it. But very rarely can we justify overblending. It's just something we do. We just think that if we just keep moving the paint around, like magic will happen. And generally, it's the opposite that happens when we overblend. We end up with a big muddy mess. And to avoid mud, stop overblending.
When you get a second, we need to do a 30-second break so I can move this
okay.
camera because it's out of focus.
Okay, so we will be taking a 30-second break here in just a few. Matt, you just tell me when you want to do it, and we'll just do it. Okay, we're going to take a 30-second break. Stay with me. Don't leave. We're just going to do a little adjustment on a camera. So stay with me. And we're back. I told you it wouldn't take a second. Hopefully we've got a little bit of better image here for what you can see on where the painting is actually occurring. So, all right, back to it. So I am just putting in, the initial start of a painting for me is really just a lot of blocking in of color. And so when I say blocking, I mean it can be very blocky, just like you see here. I'm just popping in bits of color. I'm not over analyzing it, and I'm certainly not over mixing it, or at least I'm trying not to. And you'll notice when you watch me, my eyes are almost always closed. I'll be squinting. I'll squint a lot in the beginning of a piece. Seems to be the best way to only see what you have to see. All right, I'm taking just straight on ivory black and mixing just a little bit of Purple Lake because I like it. I like it. It's a good color. Going up, 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 and right up to see that Purple Lake just makes it just a nice color. And the nice thing about this little pointed round, it's doing the job, y'all. It's doing the job. And it's not an especially small brush. like I said, this is a number 4 pointed Shiraz. It's a pointed round Shiraz, but the point is good, and I can get into the tight places, yet it still holds a lot of paint. So if you don't, I really love my Rosemary brushes, and if you're watching and you're really curious about Rosemary brushes, hit me up, let me know. I am an affiliate with them, so I have a code. I will be glad to talk to you about brushes. And when you tell me what it is that you're doing with your brushes, what you're wanting, I might be able to make a really good suggestion for a selection of brushes that you could use or try. Rosemary does have a lot of wonderful sets. And I guess the first set that I bought, I want to say it was Bill Suey's or...
Purple Lake Windsor Newton.
Yes, it is. I'll show it to you so you'll know. This is my Purple Lake. It's Windsor Newton.
Show it to the other camera.
To this one?
Big one, small
Oh, sorry. There we go. And it is a transparent color. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful for tinting. I really do like it. I use this color quite a bit. Yeah, it's wonderful. Purple Lake, and you can see the color is kind of almost a maroony color. It's a good color, but it just livens up a color that might be rather flat. And I'm trying to see here if I might have gotten this a little bit. You know, it's funny how you have to kind of readjust. And I told you, I often morph within a painting. All right, we're just going to leave that. And we need this interesting gray color. I'm going to add a little bit of this red sienna to it. And go in here on this part of his knee. I haven't seen that many foxes. We have in my neighborhood where we live, we've got a lot of wildlife for an urban setting. Not even kidding. And there was one year, right, Matt? We were seeing a lot of fox in our. We were catching them on the cams, and we were seeing them. And unfortunately, a lot of them had mange. I am going to see here this side of the tail. But I have not been seeing them this year. I know that other folks in our neighborhood have been, and they usually, I mean, whether it's on Nextdoor or one of those social medias, or they just text me and they'll say, Sue, I saw another fox and it had mange. What do I do? Kind of thing. Like, what do we do? What do we do? And unfortunately, you know, ivermectin is a choice that you can help them with their mange, but you know, obviously we're not supposed to feed wild animals, but let's face it, if they're coming into our yard, we probably already are feeding them somehow, whether it's with our cat food that we leave out or etc. Okay, I'm just undercutting that tail. I don't want to get in here and start doing a lot of detail because we are so far from that place. I know this looks really weird. These fox cubs look weird right now, but I'm going to go ahead and start cutting in the background. Now, I did this just kind of sketch, but if I want you to know where I think the light source is coming from. So I'm going to have my shadows coming down here, and I want to talk a little bit about composition. So composition basically is leading the eye. What do you want the people to look at? What do you want your viewer to see? Now, obviously, this pup is looking at this pup. The pup's just sitting there. But what do I want to do is actually, if I'm pulling your eye into this direction, I have my sun. I'm just going to suggest that my light source is coming from the top right of this substrate. So I want my shadows to go all in this direction. And the way it almost in the gaze that this pup's eyes are. It's looking this way. Although this pup is looking at the viewer, this pup is looking here, and all the shadows are kind of going in this direction. So basically, I'm going to mix a background. it's going to be simply that. It's just going to be a background. It's not going to be all that interesting. I'll manipulate it and play with it a little bit, but it will be just a darker background because I do want to highlight the back of these cubs. So I may leave space around the cubs while I'm doing this. So I'm going to go with a flat. This is or not a flat, it's a Shiraz filbert. It's a number 8. It's a pretty large brush. So I am going to take ultramarine blue, and I'm using the cobalt chromite green. And it being a cobalt color, it is opaque and it really does nicely for coverage. Mixing just a little bit of raw umber to it, and grabbing a little bit of oil, and I'm just going to start popping this in here on the background. And I'm not really going to paying mind of anything other than coverage, okay? And sometimes through this step is where I often do a lot of correcting. So if I have to take a little bit of that back off on this little cub, I will. And I'm just kind of popping this in here. Everybody, I want everybody to give my son a shout out. If it wasn't for Matt, we wouldn't be doing this. Matt he works so hard, and even while we're doing this, he's throwing more light out this way, or he's moving things around. So yes, my son is doing a lot of work here, folks, to make this possible for us today. So we're just getting this in here, and I'm just really getting some coverage. I'll manipulate it and do what I want to do later, but I just need to. And sometimes I'm going to see where there's like corrections need to be made. And the beautiful thing is, even at this stage, I can still make lots of corrections. Now, I just did a loose sketch. And I heard one time somebody said, if I trace it, am I cheating? I heard somebody say that once to me, and I thought, no, you're not cheating. I do recommend that everybody, if you're an artist, that you should spend some time sketching, or at least doing some form of drawing. But if getting a reference down, or the references down on your canvas or your substrate, means that you might have to do a little bit of tracing or whatever, that's okay. I mean, I know artists that are world-renowned oil painters that do portraits that will actually use a projector. It's okay. It's time saver. It's a tool. Even the masters had their own form of projection, and they used it. You know what? I look at that and say, well, they even had less technology at their disposal, yet they still managed to do some amazing works, but with trying to get their sketches in, and they used their own forms of tracing or projection. So it's, in my opinion, no, it's not cheating. Okay, I'm just trying to get some colors in here, and I'm trying to be very mindful of where I want my backlighting to be. Now, I do have my my handy dandy paint scraper, which, if you know me, I certainly love my paint scraper. All right, I will have this bright green plant over here, so I'm not going to bring that down. This brush is a little bit stiff, and it might mean that I didn't wash it very well. So once I get this I need to do this faster. All right, and it looks very bleh. But now I'm going to start manipulating and doing some stuff in the background. And I do need a smaller brush. Actually, I'm going to go back to the one I started with, which is the number 4 pointed round. It's Shiraz pointed round. Okay, making this color here. And the cobalt chromite is really nice. I like the coverage. It's a very nice color. And let's see if that ear's coming here. All right, I want to be able to, let's see here, that's it. Pull that down a little bit there. And so I have this kind of like, it just looks washy and bumpy and weird, right? We can fix that. And that's usually where I'll use a very soft brush. And I'm cutting in around this here, this thigh. There we go. And let's see, do I have one of my soft brushes? Anybody knows me knows I use this brush a lot. This is my number 12 long flat. It's a 279 series. It's a nice mongoose hair brush. It's super soft. And I'm dipping it in a little bit of oil, tapping it out on my towel here. And I can just very loosely, I'm trying to remove brush strokes. And I'm just kind of, you know, want it to be softer than what it currently.
Palmer says I'm going to be starting a violet tiger painting this week.
Oh, nice. A what? Now you're going to do a what tiger?
It says Wiley or Wild? W-H-I-L-E.
W-H-I-L-E. Weil?
Wild tiger?
I don't know what that means. Explain yourself, CJ. What are we going to do? Or is that a typo? I don't know what that means. I hadn't done a tiger in a while. I should do a tiger. Actually, you know what would be fun? I should just do one big giant tiger face, like on a big canvas with just tiger. It's nothing but tiger face. Okay, so you can see this just kind of bangs down the edges of the paint, makes for a, now I get to manipulate it. Okay, so you got these little cubs all just doing what they do, just sitting here, but I've got white tiger. Okay, that makes sense. A white tiger. Now that would be pretty. I'd love to see it. Okay. So I will make some holes. Okay. So when I say the little holes, I'm going to take a little titanium buff and suggest that there's like light shining through branches or something. So I'm just going to make some little holes. That's not really going to, you know, it's just like little, it's like my brain is working backwards here, folks. It's, oops. So I'm taking a little bit of the Italian brown umber and titanium buff, just popping in little holes. And I'll actually just, and you're probably thinking, what are you doing? Trust me. It'll make sense eventually, I hope. Okay, I'm going to suggest branches back there. And being that it's off in the background, I'm going to keep it pretty soft. And I'm using a little bit of the ultramarine blue and ivory black. And a little bit more ultramarine blue. Because I can't hold it. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to suggest that there's branches and stuff back here. And again, I will probably be blurring it out. Now, since I am working on a loose substrate, I got to be careful because a lot of this is not going to dry for me. I'm going to go like this, a little bit shorter on that part of the back, and this is going to come down. So like I said, I often will be doing corrections as I move through a piece. So I just shortened his back up a little bit, because I'm actually missing a little loop here. I'll make that work. The loop is there, I just have to figure out the anatomy part.
Joylyn says, amazing work as usual. Miss you.
I miss you too, Joylyn. Thank you. Hopefully you'll be back before you know it. And I'm just going to suggest that there's branches and stuff back here. I'm not going to, and because it's a very, the substrate's pretty slick, it's not going to stick right away. So I'm probably going to have to hit that with some more color later. So forgive me, I'm going to probably shorten this cub's ear a little bit. We're taking some of that ear off. Like I said, I make corrections on the fly a lot. And I'm refining his little nose. So you can see that sometimes by manipulating your negative space, you can actually change the shape of your positive space. Does that make sense? And there could be all kinds of stuff back here, but I can tell you, like I said, we're going to take this as far as I can take it today. And we're going to, like I said, I want to paint for at least 2 hours.
We're almost at an hour.
Oh, really?
We're at 50 minutes.
That's crazy. Well, we might paint a little bit longer, but I want to take this for as far as I can take it. I mean, it may end up being finished on Monday, but I want you guys to be able to get a really good understanding of how I start a piece. And you will understand how I start a piece, but I'd love for you to see how I finish one. Okay. And I'm looking at the background, trying to think what else I can do. There's a lot of dark stuff going on here. We're going to add a little bit more of the purple because I like it. The purple lake. So we can add interest, but we're going to make it so that it's not very obvious what's going on back here. And I'm just kind of making it up. I mean, I have references, this reference here, but it's not. I'm just kind of making a big old mess. I'm making a mess is what I'm doing. Because this is secondary and I really want to spend more time on the fox cups, but I can't, I have to do some of this stuff. Since the paint's really not adhering to the background right now, we'll just do what we can. Just suggest that there's brambles and whatever back here. Usually in the winter time, this window that I'm painting in gets really hot, worse than it does in the summer, where it's almost unbearable how warm it gets. And just, the angle of the earth and the sun during that time of the year, it's crazy how different it is.
We've got 16 watching.
Good. I like to hear that. Glad we have 16 folks. Know, folks, that your support really does help me, knowing that you're out there. you know, I want to encourage anybody who is not a YouTube member to jump on and become a member of my channel. And through that extra support, you're going to help me and Matt get some more equipment so I can do this better. I want to be able to give you guys more live streams and this type of thing. And it really does help knowing that you guys are there. And if you're willing to help support me through the YouTube membership, that would be awesome. Because there we will get a lot more shout outs. And eventually I'm going to be making this sort of thing only available to my members and to my YouTube members and Patreon members. You guys have always been so wonderful about supporting me, and even when I've had trouble with doing uploads because of the size of my files or whatever things I was having problems with, I just want to thank you for your patience.
CJ's heading out. She says, I need to get going. Awesome work. I'll see you soon. Bless.
All right, CJ, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Can't wait to see what your white tiger looks like. Share it with us. Okay. I'm going to add some other greens in here. I'm going to clean my brush off first because I'll get it all muddied up. This is a kind of interesting color. I like it. It's just a very intense emerald type green. I like greens. Anybody who knows me knows I love green. So I'm not really doing any detail back here. I'm just popping in color. And I will blend it and soften it and do all kinds of interesting stuff to this. I'm going to put some more of this in here. Let's mix a little bit of... Okay, we're going to do that. I'm going to see what happens when I do this brush. I may make a mess. We'll see. Using a very light hand.
Bill Everett's in. Hi, Suzanne. Finally made it here.
Who is it?
Bill Everett.
Oh, Bill, good to hear from you. I'm glad you made it. Thank you for giving me a shout out so I know you're there. You know, I like to know who I'm talking to that's watching and all that good stuff. So I am glad you're there. Thanks for making it. And Bill, we need to get you in one of my workshops or classes. I know you always tell me because you're colorblind you can't, but you know what? You might be surprised what you can do. Okay. Okay. Now I kind of just sort of suggested this background. You can see why this tool, this brush right here, is so invaluable to me. I can soften that up, make an interesting background. I'm not putting a lot of detail or anything in here. I'm just popping that in, and keeping things a little bit vague is good. It's good to have a vague background. But what we do have is a dark background against very light PUPS. And that is completely intentional. So, even though I consider this rock or whatever they're sitting on as foreground, and usually that's the last thing I do, but not really understanding how much time we're going to actually have to work on everything, I want to go ahead and get this in. So one of the colors I don't have that I think I need is dioxazine purple. So let me grab some, or a purple, other than just my violet. Okay, we're going to go with manganese violet instead. It might be all right. I'm using a little bit because I want to be able to make the shadows on this stone. So if I take a little bit of manganese violet and ultramarine blue, yeah, that's a good color. I'm going to suggest that underneath this little fox cub is this shadow that he's creating. And from this point on, he's going to be, you're probably thinking, but why so blue? Why so blue? Okay. Okay, so like my substrate kind of goes down, and this is one of my student easels, but it's one of the easels that I actually do like to work on a lot. Truth be known, this was actually the first easel that I had in my studio. When I first opened up my art studio, this was the easel that I always worked on. There we go. So now they look like they're just kind of grounded here. And I'm probably going to make some of this purple color here. But the easel that I work on the most now is a different easel. And it was actually given to me by one of my students. And because he was moving and didn't want to take it with him, and he asked if I knew anybody who might want one, and I'm like, yeah, sure. What do you know, how much you selling it for? And it was very expensive. I said, oh, I might be interested. He goes, if you're interested in it, you can have it. All you have to do is come and get it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's a great easel. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and sort of get these, the other parts of this stone. Again, remember, I paint with my eyes nearly shut most of the time when I'm starting off a piece, and I squint and squint and squint. And it's interesting. One of the wonderful things, YouTube gives us analytics.
Right at an hour.
Okay. Gives me analytics. And through the analytics, I can tell, who generally likes to watch my videos. And my videos are watched mainly by women just like me, my age, 50 somethings, 50, 60 somethings, and they're women and all that good stuff. And so if that's the majority of the people watching my videos, I know, like me, they're probably wearing readers. They probably, just like me, have, getting on there in years, and we need glasses, etc. I will tell people, my students, take off your glasses. When you're starting a piece, take off your glasses. Oopsie. Because you don't need to see the detail. And it's better to not see the detail when you're first starting a piece. That's, we don't need to see all that. Okay. So yeah, there's that. Now I'm going to get some more of this color in, and I'm just trying to go in with broader strokes and of course pull this thing out of the hole. Let me hold this for just a second. There's the clock that Matt hates. That is my clock that a friend gave me, and it's got all kinds of bird calls on it, and I like it. So thank you, Greg. Okay, so now you kind of get the idea that you've got these cubs standing up on a rock. We've got shadow coming down this way. The light's coming from behind them. So we need to go ahead and work on backlighting and all kinds of stuff. But I wanted to get that in, and I may actually exaggerate some of the light on the rock while I have it wet. Now the color that I used to make this gray is basically the violet and titanium white and a little bit of raw umber. I wanted it to have that sort of light purpley look, and the violet is nice. See, I can put a little bit extra violet in there. I just did that so you can see, and then I can just kind of smooth that out. It just makes for it to look prettier. And if I really wanted to go nuts, I could put little bits of yellow in there, because I love playing with the complements, y'all. Okay. Now I will have to say, I would consider the this part is more foreground. I would rather finish and spend more time on the fox cubs. And since we really basically have a little over an hour to go, I'm probably going to concentrate on one cub in particular, because I don't think I can possibly get this all done. Although I do want to get this little bit of green in, just so I have paint on all my surfaces. So I'm going for a couple more greens here. That's the phthalo emerald. No. Okay. I'm going to go in with bright green lake and cadmium green. Can you see it on the mat? Are you doing the face? Okay. So I've got the cadmium green. This one happens to be from Gamblin. This is bright green lake. This is Michael Harding. And I'm going to go, I have some of these greens and I'll be able to, you know what? They were, of course we can mix a lot of our greens, right? We can mix our greens. But I figured since the nice folks, Michael Harding was kind enough to put some of this stuff in a tube for me, I'm going to use it. All right, so I'm going to take another pointed round, the smaller one. It's the one we've been using the most, which is the number 4. And I am going to take my middle tone here. I'm going to call my middle tone is actually the bright green. By Michael Harding. Now, I don't know what this plant is that's in my reference. And I could go nuts here and just... And I'm just going to suggest that I'm just putting this all in here. I'm going to take a little bit of the darker green too, and that is the phthalo green emerald, and just pop that in there. So we have some cool values in with this hotter greens. Now I do like to use browns in my greens, and if I need to take a green down just a little bit, if it's just a little too intense, I like to mix a little burnt sienna in it. It just makes it a little bit more earthy and a little bit more believable. And I think this adds a little bit of fun light to this. Now I'm taking a little bit of the cad green, using this on the very tips of this, because we know that the light has to be coming from, I think, from the right, I'm sorry, from the left, upper left, because it's illuminating that part of the painting. It's casting down. We know that that's where the shadows are. Again, I'm not going to put a lot of detail in this. I'm just wanting to get that contrast. Reeves, if you're watching this, this right here reminds me of your bunny painting that you did years ago, where you had all the grass and the backlit ears of the, it's kind of a similar lighting. Okay. All right, I just kind of put that green in there, and it's probably a little intense, but I don't care. I kind of like it. And like I said, I'll probably work on changing some of that later. So for the majority of the time, I'm going to concentrate on the cubs. Matt, I got to ask you, which one do you see best? This one or this one on your monitor?
Come look at it.
Okay, I'm going to come look at it. Which one? It doesn't really matter. I can work on either one. I may, after taking consideration, I'm going to work on this cub, I think. I may go between the two. I'm going to go with a much smaller brush now and have them close by. What I just grabbed was a number 2 Rosemary Eclipse pointed round and a 1 and a 2 pointed red dot. I'll probably just go ahead and stick with the 2. Just keep 2 brushes here with me. Okay, I want to work on the PUPS face because I think, I know that, trying to think, Marty was the one who said that she was watching one of my videos on either on my Patreon channel and said that I had, like, where you saw the eye, like I was working on the eyes and then all of a sudden the eyes were done. And sometimes that happens because, just because of, editing, or I might have had somebody come in that was talking to me. I stopped filming, something like that. I have a sign on the door right now that says "Don't come in." I don't usually have that during the course of a day. So a lot of times when I'm working, I will put my hand up against here so I can steady it. So here's an opportunity where you get to see me work on the eyes.
Jerry has a question.
What's up, Jer?
Says, what greens do you recommend for the beginning artist? I mix most of my greens, but I wonder if I should invest in bright green leaf and or cadmium green.
I think that's a good question, Jerry. Obviously, if you can mix all your greens, you're dimes and dollars ahead, and but there are some greens that I really recommend that everybody have. It's interesting. Most of your beginner sets will have Viridian, but I don't use Viridian nearly as much as, and again, that's a choice. I like, if I was to recommend beginner greens or greens to have, cadmium green is one of those that it really is a great color. One, you're going to have the opacity of the color, and that you're not going to get like with sap green. I love sap green, but sap green is a very transparent or semi-transparent color. So if you're really wanting to have, I think sap green, cadmium green, I like some of the, I like Italian green umber. I don't know. It's hard because I really like greens, but I definitely would say that cad green, emerald green, sap green are definites for sure to have. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I am going to go in with Italian green umber, and I'm going on the interior part of this little cub's eyes. Now here's an interesting thing about fox. A fox, yes, indeed, is a canine, but their eyes are a lot like a cat's eyes in that they have vertical slit pupils. Okay, so I just have that in there like that. And I am going to, I'm using a small brush because I want to be able to show the detail a little bit more on this piece. And I'm still using the, I'm using the Italian green umber. I'm sorry, not Italian green umber. It's Italian brown ochre and cadmium, and burnt sienna. So I'm starting to get the little bit of the shape here on this little fox's face. But oh, sure. I'm glad I could help. Now I'm mixing a little raw umber. Remember, I kept telling you that this area, this little animal's face is going to be kind of cool and dark because the light is coming from behind him. Here, grabbing a little of this orange that we mixed, and because I already have other cool colors mixed in here, it's mixing perfectly. So I can see here, I'm looking at this color, and I can bring this leg is going to come up a little bit more. So a lot of times there's a lot of corrections that occur on my piece as I'm actually really studying my reference. Folks, I can't emphasize enough, unless you are just so brilliant that you have a photographic mind and you can look at it once, most of us are not that way. If you're not, and if you're my students, you know that I'm always telling you this. Look at your reference, y'all. Look at your reference. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that little pupil in there. And I'm coming down. And then it comes down this way. and straight in this way. Then it comes over, and I think we're okay on the nose. Doop, 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 doop. It's almost like shaped like a little diamond. Okay. Now, there's some really interesting blues in here, bluish grays, and I'm using King's Blue because, you know, if you know me, you know I love this color. And just using the King's Blue on top of the paint that's already here is making a lovely gray. I mean, seriously, it's beautiful. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of lightening up here, but since I already have some of this color on my brush, it's going to blend nicely for me. Okay, that's kind of working it. It's working. Can you guys see okay? I hope you can. Know that we're going to try to work to get some more equipment. And if you like this sort of thing and want to see it more often, let me know. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but please consider becoming a member on my Patreon and or both. I have a lot of my folks that are YouTube members are also Patreon members. There's advantages to doing both. If you want to watch the full-length videos, you got to jump on Patreon. But eventually a lot of this kind of stuff will become, like these live streams, will probably become more of a membership to my YouTube channel. So there's an advantage to becoming, being a member on both platforms. Okay, so I'm actually trying to emphasize some of the light areas or the grays. And I could see that this has got to be thinned down. And he's got a little tiny little bottom lip here. Just like that. Just like that. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of that ivory black and soften this up. These little babies, they're so adorable. And growing up here to the top, getting a little bit more of the Italian brown ochre and burnt sienna combo. So you can see why using this brush is really, really helpful right now. There is a lot of this interesting.
Marty Wolf says, I can see pretty good, but it would be nice to be able to see closer for the detail.
Right.
That type of thing would improve with PTZ cameras.
Right. So I hear what you're saying. And again, that's where we're going to work to get some new cameras. If you only understood it right now, what cameras we're using, it's not optimum. We're using my old, just Nikon, what do you call it, Matt? DSLR camera. I don't have a good, unfortunately, my wide angle lens is messed up. So we have to use the close up or the big lens, and the thing is, it's too much. It
also doesn't do focus right nor exposure.
Right. No, it doesn't.
It's stuck in auto. Right.
So that's why if we're going to be doing more and more of this. Money. Let's talk about money for a second. Yeah, that's why I'm really wanting to grow my membership on YouTube, because through that growth becomes more income, and with that income becomes more equipment. It becomes more all the good things that make for a better live stream. I like doing live stream. I like hearing from people. I like to know you guys are out there, and I like to know that you benefit from this. But know that it does take money. And I'm limping along with the equipment that I have, but as we grow, we will add more wonderful equipment and make this something that you guys can enjoy more of. Okay, this comes straight down through this little paw. Oh, this guy's so adorable. I'm sorry, fox pups are just adorable thing. They're just a little adorable. All right, so that's almost goes across here and then in. Because the other thing is that I would like to do is to do some more online teaching. I do have some folks that I work with via Zoom, but I would like to do some actual workshops, and having good equipment for that is imperative as well. Okay. So I'm going to grab some of this blue gray that we made, and it's a combination of the ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and a little bit of the king's blue. I'm just popping that in this little hair area of this guy's chest. So I have this highlighted area here, and I want it to look fuzzy and fun, and I don't want it to look like this like it's so. I'm gonna go back in with some of the background color. It's a little bit here. I'm trying to loosen this up. I know you can't see it, but what I'm doing is I'm just teasing the edges with this little brush. Because it's not quite as far out as I had it. Now I'm going to use my little paint scraper because I went down. I need to bring this little white here. Those little feet. Clean my brush off really well. Picking up, oops, it didn't clean it well. Take my lemon yellow, titanium white, and run that right here, and actually right here on his little paws. Same here. And I may actually take a little artistic license and pull it, even though I can't really see it on this paw. I'm putting it in there anyway. And there is some dark behind here. Okay. Well, that's annoying, whatever that noise is.
It's a hammer drill.
That's because you know stuff. Okay, so I'm going to try to soften that leg just a tiny bit. And know that a lot of this like little detaily stuff will happen another day. Okay, the ears, those little ears. Let's see here. I'm going to take my little paint scraper, and it goes out a little bit here, and then it comes out a little bit here. Okay, just that little bit helps. And I'm cleaning my brush really well. Going in with the lemon yellow and titanium white. Rolling my edge, keeping it nice and tight. These red dots are wonderful. The red dot brush is a synthetic sable style of brush that Rosemary carries. And I'm here to tell you, I can use these guys interchangeably, the sables and the red dots, and I can't tell the difference. Not usually anyway. Okay, so you can see he's got that backlighting, and we're going to work on the backlight on the top of his ear. And it does help to have a very soft hand. When you're working on a smoother substrate as opposed to a coarser canvas, you have to be able to use a really light hand, because otherwise you'll go right through into the other color, especially if you're trying to stack color. So I'm really trying to be very gingerly placing this paint, because otherwise I'm going to start pulling that green into this part of his little backlit head, and I don't want to do that. While I'm at it, might as well do the other ear.
Bill says, I think it will be a mud mixer. Will the colors change as they dry?
Who asked that?
Bill.
Okay, what was the question?
It wasn't. He says, I think it will be a mud mixer. Will the colors change as they dry?
A mud mixer. I don't know what you mean. It's not going to be a mud mixer. I'm not going to make mud out of this if I don't overblend and if I choose the right colors to begin with. The biggest thing that makes a painting muddy is making the wrong color selection and then overblending. So in my case, no, this will not be a big mud fest, because I'm very deliberate about the colors I'm picking. Did that answer your question? I hope. Or were you referring to like if you were just going to do this yourself? I'm not sure. Now I'm loosening up because these pups are fuzzy, okay? So I'm just going in and kind of fuzzing up this little bit of, but I have to be really careful because I don't want it to blend. Okay, I'm looking at this little body, and I think this body has to come out a little bit more. I'm going to grab my little, so I can actually take this little scraper and just do some of this little fuzziness. Actually take off some more of this paint. These paint scrapers are the bomb. And I really have one of my students that I had a long time ago, and she was the one who introduced me to the paint scraper. I had never heard of such a thing. So that's Jerry. Her name is Jerry too. She was wonderful. I see her every now and then on Facebook. She probably has no idea how she just changed my world by using these guys. And my whites are starting to get dirty, y'all. I see it happening. And a lot of this is not gonna, I don't want to get into that part yet. So I want to be able to localize a lot of the attention in one spot. So I think so far you saw how, painting for me generally starts with some type of inspiration. There's inspiration, and then there's finding the references. And after you find your references, then it's, each step of the way, then you've got to be able to put your bulk colors down, or your large group of colors for blocking it in. You saw how I did that with this piece. And now there's a lot that has to be done in here, and a lot of it's going to happen in the form of I'm going to localize my concentration of my smaller brushwork just to this little fox right here, because this would all have to happen throughout the whole painting, yes? So since we're running out of time and it's not going to all happen today, I figured my time would be better spent if I just go ahead and show you how I do the smaller brushwork. Is usually the last stuff you do. All right, so I'm taking some ivory black and cad red. I've got to make some deep hole areas inside these ears.
We're at an hour and a half.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to leave that bright red up at the top. I like that, and I'm not going to mess with that. And I'm going to just a little bit up here, push that up. So you can see I'm just kind of doing everything with a small brush. So Matt just informed me that we were at an hour and a half. I feel like I'm at some of the shows that I've been to, we do demos. And we will do fast painting demos. And I always feel like the pressure's on when they're saying, okay, we got 30 minutes. No, where are you? Everybody's just rushing to get it done. That's what I feel like. If you happen to have caught my video when I was in DC and was painting at the National Zoo, sometimes when you're painting under a lot of you've got to, there is some challenges when it comes to the temperature, the sun, you're talking to people, and talking to people's never been a problem for me, folks, trust me. But when you're trying to get in and out and you're just trying to get it done, oh my goodness, it was so hot. And I actually started the painting, goodness gracious, at 8 a.m. Or it was really about 8:30 by the time I actually got started. And it was so stinking hot. Okay, we're getting the idea here. Can you see what's happening here? Okay, I'm gonna start adding a little bit of, the inside of those ears should probably be a little bit darker. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of raw umber to them. Oops. Let's make that a little less. There we go. So these are all like hairs. And a lot of that's going to happen later. Okay, I have red umber too. I'm actually going to add a little bit of cad red to that color. I'm going to grab another color here. I'm going to hope it blends, is what I'm hoping here. Yep, it did. I'm adding this little bit of a brighter orange right here. Okay. All right, I feel like I need to kind of localize some more of this time here. All right, I'm going to take some ivory black, start to work some of this area inside the interior part of this cub's face. And I'm using very short strokes. Very short, almost like hairy little strokes. And oftentimes my brushwork will follow the contours of, in this case, the muzzle. So I'm taking a little bit of the ivory black and I'm taking a little bit of the ultramarine blue and going to concentrate right here at the end. It goes up. And the same on this side. Redip, reload. Okay. You have the little cute little eyebrows. And I gotta finish this eye on this side. I'm going to go back in on that nose. It's just a little faint little. You can't see it, but I know it's there. There's going to be a little highlight because of the way the very top of the nose might be just slightly lighter. Some of this is probably not going to, no, it's not going to get finished. I had all kinds of envisioning that this was actually going to be completed today in the 2 hours, but alas, it will not. I'm going to go in here and finish this little eye on this side. It's the eye is an interesting thing. Usually, depending on the lighting, most eyeballs, if you remember the fact that eyeballs are round, they usually catch the light off the top of, it's usually darker at the top of the eye and the light hits the bottom part of the iris. Does that make sense? I mean, of course, there's always an exception to every rule. But in general, that is the, let's see, let's get this in here. This comes out like to here. So I'm always making adjustments as I roll here. And this comes out a little bit here. So I can see, like, you know, the actual head, as I told you in the beginning, will almost always morph. And what I mean by morphing is I make corrections as I go. I'm on the fly here. And I always look where things are in relationship to other things. Now, I know that sounds like, well, yeah, duh. But no, it's not all that, it doesn't necessarily make all that much sense when I say it that way. When I hear it come out of my own mouth, I'm like, what did she just say? But if I know the eye is here, then I know the side of the head is over here. But look, I know this goes up at this angle, so therefore this must change. And so there's a lot of that happens in my work while I work. I don't. I wish I could say that I get an exact looking picture, so therefore it's exactly right. That's not the case with me. Like I said, I just kind of did a loose sketch. And I'm always adjusting. So I know underneath here it is going to be cool. I'm going to use my ultramarine blue and burnt sienna gray that I've made. It seems to be doing the trick here. And we're going to go in here with a little bit of the deeper the deeper burnt sienna. I could tell you this will probably end up finishing up on Monday. And what I'll do is I'll videotape what I did and I'll be able to show you the finished part. It'll be on the next YouTube video, perhaps. So I'm using a lighter color now on top. So you can see you can stack color. You just got to wait till what the right appropriate time to do it is. Alrighty. How are we doing, Matt?
Good. You're at an hour and 20 minutes. Currently 10 people watching.
Okay.
And stream health has been really good the whole time.
Good. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad there's actually some folks watching. Okay, I can see that I need to bring this little, there's some area on this little fox's face that comes around. And I'm not really exactly happy with the eyes yet. They're not quite that big.
I meant to say an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to know that y'all like to watch this sort of thing. I'm pleased that there was a lot of folks that tuned in today. So thank you so much. All right, this is going to be a little bit bigger here. Let's see, that comes up this way. There's a light area here. Okay, it's starting to make sense. Like I said, sometimes I have to pull in from other areas. I try to move the colors around a little bit. And I'm going to, let's take that and add a little bit of raw umber to it. It's a very, very dark color here. Goes up. Actually, that's going to come in here. And I don't need that to be quite as big as I initially did it. There's a little bit of an orange right through here, right next to this. So sometimes you just got to blend that in there. So that's one of the other ways of adding that little bit of a glow to your work. Is knowing where to add the glow. Tricky. There's an artist that I admire the work of, Jim Bortz, and he can make something glow like nobody. And I look at his work and go, oh my God. So I doubt Jim's watching, but if he was, I just want to let him know that I think his work is amazing, and I think what I like best about his work is how he can glow something. He can make it glow. So I'm going back in again with the darker color. So when you do a cooler color up against a warmer color, that immediately makes an impact of contrast with temperature. So contrast can happen not just with the value, but it can also be a color contrast. Okay, there's a lot more going on down here than I actually put in, and I can tell you I'll be lengthening this part of his body out. The distance between his foot and his tail is, I've got this too short. So I'm here to tell you there's going to be a lot more painting on this, and you can probably catch it on Wednesday. I'll probably finish this as I'll just call it part 2. This is a companion to the live stream, I suppose. So be sure to be checking that out. All right, so this is, I'm going to put it underneath here. So I'm looking at my structure of my little cub here. And so this is really his arm. And we're going to bring that down. So from here, from this roll, okay, so I get it. So this foot comes down here, and this tail comes down here. So there's a little bit of shifting around here that's going to happen. So I'm going to use my paint scraper while I can. His tail is actually right here. It's just a little bit longer, but I just got it a little bit off. And see, sometimes that's what we do. Figure that out and just move through it. I'm still, for the record, folks, squinting. Even though I am starting to lay in detail, and I'm doing that mainly for your benefit, I probably wouldn't be laying in detail this early into a piece. But I just wanted to kind of be, full disclosure here. All right, let's see. I'm going to go in with this smaller. This happens to be a pointed round. It's an Eclipse number 2, pointed round. So if I know that this is here, this other paw comes down here, this little toe. We'll figure that out later. Then this toe, this foot comes right here. There's a lot of dark happening right in here. I bet we have a dog at home that is missing us, Matt.
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, is he? Well, good. He can let him out. Okay. So there's a lot of this blue right in this part of the tail. Hang on, where is that? Would be right in here. Hopefully my mom's watching. And if she is, don't worry, Mom. I'm coming to get you. Okay. So there's some dark areas on the hind leg. So I'm just trying to create my structure here. I'll put a little bit more of that blue in here. I like that. There's going to be some light area through here. This dark area will go up a little bit. Oops, there's one of my brushes just dropped. The side of this tail is interesting. It's catching a lot of blue color here. And everybody wants to think of a foxtail as being all this bright orange tail. And I guess it is, sometimes. I have seen red fox that you would swear were gray foxes, which is an entirely different, species of the fox. But I have seen some that are just interesting colors. And I'm going to put this bluish little tip here. This little vixen's tail. I'm having a little problems here with trying to get the paint to go in here at this moment. I said you'll have to be sure to catch the next video. we'll get this in here. Let's get some more into this ear. And we're going to leave some of that red because that's what's kind of cool, is that light's shining behind his ears and it's kind of shining through his ears. We're going to go straight black inside the ear here. And a little bit closer to where the fur is going to go over it, but some of this we're not going to really get it in there until later. I like to leave that little bright red inside the ears because that's where the sun's shining through his ears. All right, so since we don't have a lot of time, I'm not going to do a lot of that detail here. I'm going to do some more blocking in. And I know that there's a lot of a lighter value through here. And sometimes even just how you push up on the brush, remember brushes work in lots of different directions. I just messed up that eye because I'm using too big a brush. But we'll fix that. Okay, we're gonna go in there, get that really intense darker edge. And I need my smaller brush that fell on the floor. Here it is. Okay.
We got about 12 minutes until 2 hours.
Okay, thank you, Matt. This eye back in here the way it needs to be. I'm going to try to get this little eyebrow in here, which is adorable. Let's see here. So sometimes it's easier to do eyes when you're doing larger eyes. Trying to do little tiny fox eyes on a little tiny painting is challenging. And if I really wanted to try to show you a little bit better, I would put just a little bit of light on the bottom part of the eye. In the little bit of the time that we have left, folks, does anybody have any other questions to ask? Please ask questions. Nope. And hopefully I've answered some questions today. Okay, folks, I do want to encourage you to become a member on my YouTube channel and to also check out my Patreon channel. This is where a lot of this stuff is going to start happening more and more. And if you like watching live painting and know that over time we will get better equipment, we're going to get better at doing this, I look forward to it. I just really enjoy this. And I hope that you guys really enjoy painting and following along. And we'll do this. It'll be a fun event. Also, too, remember I do have a workshop coming up October 7th, 8th, and 9th here in Kingsport, Tennessee. And we always have a big time there. A lot of fun. We always have a little get together. And know that, too, that's a great way if you ever wanted to just, if you were kind of curious about having one of my paintings, and, you know, it's a nice, easy way to collect some of my work is to join my workshop, because I give away my demos. So 2 lucky people will go home with my demos. So if that sounds like a good plan for you, come join us. We have fun. We also have parties. We had a little get together here and it was a lot of fun. How we doing, Matt?
Huh?
How are we doing, honey?
We have 5 minutes roughly.
Okay.
Keep watching.
Well, good. We've actually had a good little turnout today.
Oh yeah, lots of comments.
Good. So I'm going in with a little bit of the lighter blue-gray that I made. And popping that in where it needs.
This is one painting. I hope to see it finished.
Who said that?
Jerry.
Hi, Jer. Okay, yeah. I think what we're going to have to do is finish it. I'll probably finish it on Monday. And it will be the part 2.
Will it be a YouTube video?
Yes. It will be on YouTube. All right.
Marty says, I enjoyed it also. I really be great with the ability to see the detail, but I understand the money thing. Hopefully it works out.
Thanks, Marty, and thank you for understanding. Marty, you're awesome, because you support me through your online classes that you take with me and also through Patreon. So I want to thank you for that. Folks, I'm also, with all this, I'm also wanting to eventually be able to do online workshops via Zoom. So be thinking, you know, like I said, I really want to try to do this and become more available to you guys. So know that that's a thing that I'm looking into. Okay. I can tell you I'm probably going to have to wrap it up here pretty soon, but you get the idea. It's, for me, painting is it's a process. I'm putting in just a little bit of light over the top of the cub's eyes, but I'm going to let it dry because there's a lot that has to be done that I really can't do right now. But that's kind of it. I'm going to stop right now. Matt, if you want to switch me to you did? Because he's always ahead of everything. I do want to thank everybody who joined me. Thank you for all the great questions you asked. Know that I will complete this piece. I'm hoping to, try to get it done on Monday, so that if I finish it on Monday, it should be Wednesday's YouTube video, and it will just become part 2. It'll be part 2 of the fox cubs, and yeah. Join me for that too. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming here and all the good questions you asked. And please, if you're not a subscriber, become a subscriber. If you're not a member, consider membership and check out my Patreon channel. So, till next time from Kingsport, Tennessee, I want to say thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.